Hello guys, my name is Matt and welcome to this absolutely probably fantastic video. So I was hanging out on YouTube as I usually do, and I found this post by Single Halo Clips. In it, they show what they call an ancient relic, the December 2010 issue of the official Xbox magazine with the first Halo Reach review. Well, if that's ancient, then what I have must be whatever older than ancient is. I have here not only the first ever official Xbox magazine, but the world premiere review of Halo Combat Evolved. This is literally 20 years old and sat in my old room at my parents' house for most of that time. And today we're gonna check some of it out together. So here it is, the very first official Xbox magazine in all its abused, page-torn glory. The very first thing you'll probably notice is this chick, whose name is Christy. Found that out after doing some research. But this cover is almost entirely focused on Dead or Alive 3. Halo is given one little spot at the top right corner. I'm not sure why they did this, but if I had to guess, it's because they didn't realize how big Halo would become. On the back cover is an ad for 4x4 Evo 2. That's a lot of numbers for a game which I never played. If we take a closer look back at the cover, we see something at the top called Project Ego, which you may be familiar with, and we will absolutely touch on that later. Opening to the very first page is this beautiful ad for Halo Combat Evolved. Reading this ad today, 20 years later, I realize it almost doesn't really fit the tone of Halo. It seemed more fitted to grab the attention of any hardcore shooter player at the time. Just listen to this here. They say there are only a few heroes left on this world. You, soldier, are about to find out why. And then at the very bottom, this is no place for subtlety. This is no place for pity. This is a place where aliens want to turn humans into a bad memory. This is a place for carnage. This is Halo. Again, I wouldn't say this tone is really what you would expect from a modern Halo ad. At least we get this beautiful shot of Chief. I'll admit this ad had me so hyped to play this game. Continuing on, we find the editor's letter in a section called Meet the Team. This was in every issue where you'd be introduced to the writers and editors and they'd answer some kind of random question. And who do we have here? It's none other than Frank O'Connor. Yes, that Frank O'Connor. The franchise development director for Halo, who currently works at 343, and prior to that also worked at Bungie as the writer for the Bungie Weekly Update during Halo 2 and 3. Do I envy this man's career path? I absolutely do. Next up we have this section titled Launch Sequence, which details the launch of the Xbox by pointing out not only its competitors at the time, which were PS2 and GameCube, but also the general 2001 economy. They even mention a recession, and not the 2008 one. Yeah, if you grew up a millennial, you've lived through a lot of economic events. Also, they bring up the price of the Xbox, $299. Imagine getting a Series X for that price, if you could find one. Flipping past this article, I noticed this page where I clearly cut out a game. I believe this was me being spoiled and asking for a game for Christmas, and I probably could have just written down the name of the game and given it to my parents. But that's me. So here is the absolutely massive cover story for Dead or Alive 3. Before we flip through it quickly, I want to point out this unintentionally hilarious ad for Shrek the game. I know Shrek is a complete meme now, but back in 2001, that just wasn't the case. And now that it is, I just have to read through these completely serious quotes. Easily the most impressive aspect about this game is its graphical prowess, GameSpot. Shrek looks gorgeous and its attention to detail is astounding. Expert Gamer. And my favorite, the production values are movie-like. They'll wonder if they are playing the game Shrek or watching the movie Shrek, and people will get hooked. CNN. So the Dead or Alive 3 article starts out mentioning that this game has always been viewed as that good fighting game with bouncy boobs, which I of course know from my research and countless hours playing the demo. I'm not a big fighting game fan, so this article doesn't particularly interest me, but let's just flip through to see how much this issue invested in it. First page, and another, still going, another cut page, still going. A nice literal 4-page ad by EA, Still Evil, back in 2001, and then we get to the end and see that OXM gave this a glorious 9.5. So here is probably my favorite part of this issue, Project Ego, or as many of you know it, Fable. Project Ego was just the code name for it back then. This article covers the absolutely ridiculous promises that creator Peter Molyneux was pushing about his game. Here we see lens flare. Yes, this was a huge accomplishment back then, and believe it or not, people liked lens flare. Think of it as the motion blur of 2001, which everyone hates now. The article goes on about how every single choice in the game will affect your character, how you will literally grow muscle or not depending on how you play, how trees can be chopped down to build a house, how you could choose a female character and you may get pregnant and have to wait through 9 months of pregnancy in the game, and many more things that were just hyped up way more than what was delivered. Even with all this promise, OXM even states in this section here that developers sometimes bite off more than they can chew, and this could be the case with Project Ego. And yeah, that's basically what happened. Props to them for calling it out. That being said, I didn't hate Fable at all, and I actually really enjoyed it, but I remember specifically being disappointed that I couldn't do everything that was promised. Another one of my favorite parts of this issue is the pictorial guide to a perfect Xbox setup. Look at that massive RCA TV. Here's where this particular issue really shows its age. Of course, this hasn't changed though. The epic gamer must always be supplied with snackies and Mountain Dews. Here we see a complete Simpson figurine collection, basically the equivalent to the stupid modern day Funko Pop collection, as well as 2 Duke controllers. I mean, just look at the size of these things. If you never held one of these, let me try to explain. It was about as graceful as using a basketball as a controller. I mean, in the Dead or Alive 3 article, we can see the creator holding the Duke, and he has to use the old claw technique. When I was a kid, I played Xbox exactly like this and still do to this day, 2 decades later. Old habits really do die hard. Okay, so this next article is really great as well. It really hits me with how far we've advanced in technology. This one is called Best in Class, and it's what the writers at OXM thought was the best gaming setup you could possibly have. First, the TV. This absolutely thick RCS 36-inch digital high-resolution TV. It's interesting because the article makes a point to call older TVs huge, while this chonker of a TV setup is nearly 200 pounds. If you wanted this back in 2001, you'd also have to be willing to shell out $1,700, which you can now get a 55-inch OLED for that price. And best for last, the most absolutely ridiculous thing on this list, Yamaha RAV 2000 Intelligent Remote Control. Forget this, $500. Universal remotes were big back in the early 2000s, but to be honest, I don't really see the point of these things. I see it as more for lazy people who don't want to swap between like 2 remotes. Finally, we come to the world exclusive review of Halo Combat Evolved, stuck right in the middle so you'd be sure to hit all those sweet magazine ads along the way. Right at the top we see the headline, "The hype didn't even do it justice," as well as the coveted official Xbox Magazine Elite Award for Excellence. There's a lot of great screen caps in this article that really got me hyped to finally play Halo, like this one here from Assault in the Control Room, but I really have to point out the mistakes they made here. First, they say shielded Covenant grunts. Actually, those are jackals. Okay, maybe they just meant grunt as like infantry units, but then not only do they point out the Wraith and call it a ghost, but they then explain how you can hijack it and take to the skies. Clearly they were talking about the Banshee, but this picture is a Wraith and ghosts can't fly. Guys, what happened here? No, seriously, I genuinely want to know because there are many more mistakes like this throughout this entire article. Like here in this section where they describe some vehicles in Halo, they talk about the Ghost again like it's a Banshee. Can we get some like editing checks on this? Okay, seriously though, this article was great to read through as a kid. Some interesting things to point out in this review, which again shows the time period we were in here. It was a big deal to be able to kill enemies in a game and pick up their weapons. They mentioned this a few times throughout the article and how great it was. They also mention weapon carrying capacity. See, in classic FPS games, you just picked up weapons and cycled through as many as you could find. Halo was one of the first to introduce the 2-weapon system limit, which made you really think about what you were picking up. Here we see a nice shot of the Scorpion. The caption reads, "Each player on the tank can be controlled by a player or human AI." Wait, what? Guys, you could not take control of Marines in the game. Alright, I'm sorry. I'm done yelling at you guys from 20 years in the future. Here we see a list of some weapons featured in Halo, and we see the classic early 2000s phrase, "Booyah." Yeah, that was a thing. I also like how they refer to Cortana as a holographic hottie and infer that she has a crush on you and that the romantic tension is high. If only they knew how badly she'd be ruined in Halo 5, I'm sure they'd be upset. At the very end of this is of course the verdict, a beautiful 9.5 out of 10. Feel free to pause here and read through, but of course they mention the graphics, which were amazing at the time. The the beautiful title track, which of course is a classic today, and the amazing AI for both the Covenant and the Marines. The only negative they point out are that the levels can get confusing. I feel like they were specifically thinking about the library while writing this, and the fact that the split screen can get crowded, which admittedly it did on older TVs. The rest of this issue continues to rate all of the launch titles. There are tons to go through, and I don't want to bore you with reading each individual one. Unless I get yelled at in the comments, then I'll make another video. Hey, here's that game we saw on the back cover, 4x4 Evo 2. Got a 5.5, glad I didn't play it. Finally, we get to the back where they discuss the demo disc, which came with every issue. I really miss these days of demo discs. I love being able to play and sample games before I bought them, and there were a ton of games on each of these discs. Can we go back to easily available demos like for every single game, please? So just to mention a few from this list: Dead or Alive 3, Mad Dash Racing, which is a personal favorite of mine, NFL Fever 2002, Project Gotham Racing, and of course the glorious Shrek. Interesting enough, they mentioned the size of the files packed on this disc. All of these games totaled only 5.4 gigabytes. Lastly, we see a screen cap describing the demo disc interface and all of its semi-futuristic early 2000s design glory. And with that, we've come to the end of the issue. Tons in here, I barely scratched the surface. Just wanted to point out some things I found interesting. And of course, the Halo review. Thanks for watching, guys. I tell you what, recording magazines with the glossy paper was great fun, just lighting nightmares out the ass. I hope I see you guys on my next video, which will probably be totally unrelated to this. Alright, peace.